ACR response criteria are widely used in rheumatoid arthritis clinical trials to measure whether a patient has improved between baseline and a later visit. The result is usually reported as a responder or non-responder, but that simple output depends on several underlying measures. ACR20 is better thought of as a composite response rule. To meet ACR20, a patient needs at least a 20% improvement in tender joint count and swollen joint count, plus at least a 20% improvement in 3 out of 5 additional measures. Those 5 measures are the patient's global assessment of disease activity, the physician's global assessment, a patient pain scale, a disability or function measure such as the Health Assessment Questionnaire Disability Index, and an acute phase reactant such as ESR or C-reactive protein. And this structure matters because one strong component cannot rescue the endpoint on its own. If the joint counts do not improve enough, the patient does not meet the ACR response definition, even if pain or global assessment scores improve. ACR50 and ACR70 use the same structure with higher improvement thresholds. ACR50 requires at least a 50% improvement, and ACR70 requires at least a 70% improvement. The categories are nested. For example, a patient who meets ACR70 also meets ACR50 and ACR20. A patient who meets ACR50 also meets ACR20. That hierarchy needs to be clear in derivations and reporting, otherwise results can appear inconsistent when the underlying data do not support that. Many trials use ACR20 at a pre-specified visit as a key endpoint. This gives a clean comparison between treatment groups, usually by comparing the proportion of responders at that visit. It fits naturally with a binary endpoint analysis and is relatively easy to explain. The limitation is that rheumatoid arthritis response develops over time. 2 treatment arms may look similar at one landmark visit, while showing different patterns earlier in the study. That timing can affect interpretation, especially in settings such as biosimilar comparisons, where the overall pattern of response may contribute to the similarity argument. Longitudinal analysis gives teams a way to use more of the data collected across visits. Instead of focusing only on one time point, repeated measures approaches can assess response patterns across the study. Nonlinear modeling may also be considered when the response curve has a shape that can be described over time. These methods depend heavily on the quality and density of the data. Missed visits, inconsistent assessment timing, late lab uploads, or missing joint counts can leave the model filling in too many gaps. Interpretation also needs planning. Some curve-based summaries do not translate easily into familiar margins, such as a difference in responder rates, which can make technically valid results harder to use in decision-making. Where teams want an overall summary across time, there are approaches that stay closer to responder rate language. A weighted mean method can combine differences in responder rates at each time point into one estimate with a confidence interval. A generalized estimating equations approach, or GE, can also estimate an overall difference in proportions across selected visits for binary response data. Operational planning is just as important. If ACR is assessed at weeks 4, 8, 12, and 24, the components need to line up within the intended visit windows. Sites need consistent training for tender and swollen joint counts. Patient-reported outcomes need to be completed cleanly. ESR or C-reactive protein results need to reach the database in time to support endpoint classification. Common problems often come from treating ACR20 as if it were just one field. Late in the study, teams may find that a supporting component is missing, out of window, or still queried. That can affect whether a patient can be classified as a responder, especially when the missing component is a joint count, HAQ disability index value, or acute phase reactant. The dichotomous output hides the complexity underneath. ACR endpoints behave like composite endpoints because each component carries its own operational risk. From joint count variability to lab availability to patient questionnaire completion, ACR endpoints give a consistent framework for assessing improvement in rheumatoid arthritis trials, but they need careful handling. Define the endpoint clearly, protect the component data, and decide early whether the time profile of response will be part of the analysis. To learn how Quanticate can support your next trial, email inquiries@quanticate.com or request a consultation through our website. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more practical insights on clinical trials and modern drug development.